Hey everybody, this is Marian Owen.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and TV that they loved before the first date. And today, I was made to watch They Live.
Yes, They Live. They Live, which is, of course, the 1988 John Carpenter movie starring Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was part of his name, but it didn't come up in the credits, and I was a little confused.
I mean, it's like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, okay.
Like, for a while. I mean, he's always been Rowdy. He's always been Roddy Piper.
Yeah.
He was Rowdy. He's Hot Rod. Like, had various names over the years, but never in the way, like, there was a period where, for most of his wrestling career, Dwayne Johnson was The Rock.
Yeah.
And that was it.
And that, right.
Dwayne Johnson was his real name. So the first couple movies, he was
Dwayne
The Rock or Dwayne
Johnson.
The Rock Johnson. Yeah. So no, yeah, Hot Rod or Rowdy Roddy.
Okay. Bit of a John Mellencamp, John Cougar to John Cougar Mellencamp to John Mellencamp
to John Cougar Mellencamp. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, perhaps. And also Keith David is in this movie.
Yes.
And Meg Foster, who you may know as the evil stepmom from that movie with an evil stepmom.
Yeah, both of those are people where once I looked at their Wikipedia and saw pictures of them that were more recent, I was like, oh, yeah, okay. I haven't seen any of these things they've been in, but I've seen them in everything. Like, they just have the face. They're everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we've run into several of these. They are these prolific character actors. The Melinda Dillons and et ceteras of the world.
The Scott Glenn.
Yeah, Scott Glenn. Yeah. Please see previous episode for every character actor.
Yes.
Yeah, that sort of. There are a couple of those, and Keith David is a particular favorite of John Carpenter. He was in The Thing in 1982. And so he's kind of he got a reputation for being in a couple of horror movies, and he sort of became a cult figure within that scope. Like, for instance, if you are making, say, a parody horror comedy 80s style movie, you might say, I'm looking for a Keith David type, and people would know exactly the character that you want him to play and the person that you want to play it.
Although on the other end of the spectrum, turns out I know him as Mary's dad in Something About Mary. So when Ben Stiller gets his junk caught in a zipper, Keith David is the one who says, is it the Franks or the beans? And then the brother keeps going, Franks and beans, Franks and beans. So yeah, that guy. If you're me and hadn't seen this, that's where you know him from.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes, many, many, many things. Prolific actor, Keith David. Not to be confused with David Keith, also a prolific character actor.
And I think there is a singer in the past 20 years called Keith David, who is always who I think of. I don't know any of his music. My brother burned me a copy of his CD that I never listened to. Sorry.
Toby Keith.
No.
Thinking of Keith Sweat?
Do you think my brother likes Toby Keith? Apologize right now. No.
I don't know. He's up there in Wisconsin. He was making furniture for a while, wasn't he?
Was he? I don't know. Oh, yeah.
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 Now he's on a farm.
Yeah. My brother's a farmer. Grew up in the city and now is a farmer. It can go that way.
I'll say this. He's heard a Toby Keith song.
Oh, I'm sure he has, under protest. All right, I'm going to look this up while you're telling me more about this, because there is a singer called Keith David. Anyway.
Sure. Go for it.
Yeah.
So They Live. It's. I want to say this is a straightforward movie because the structure of the movie is simple. It takes place over a couple days, and there's not a lot that happens. It's all pretty. It's a pretty condensed plot, but there's a lot that happens. So I hesitate to call it a straightforward movie, but the basic plot of They Live, if you've never seen it before, is that we are all being controlled. We're being controlled. The judges are telling me they're weighing in on this.
Craig David. Sorry. Okay. Anyway.
Yes. Now we know
that I was wrong.
You were. Someone was screaming
right. My brother.
Oh, no.
My brother was screaming.
Yeah. So we're all being controlled by an ace of aliens, a race of aliens who have been here for an undetermined amount of time on Earth, basically controlling us and pitting us against one another, and sending subliminal messages and blending in with us, and sort of just farming our planet and turning it into a place that's going to be more hospitable to their form of life.
Yeah.
And Rowdy Roddy Piper finds a pair of sunglasses that shows him the truth. And then
stuff.
they have an adventure.
Yeah. There's a lot of setup to him finding the sunglasses. There was a point where we paused it and we were an hour into the movie and we were just getting to the thing that this movie is arguably the most famous for, which is the pivotal fight scene where Piper's Nada gets Keith David's Frank to finally try on the magic sunglasses. There was a lot of setup. And I think one of the things that one of my notes on this is all of that setup is in service of this commentary of on the social and economic, specific, very, very much economic, but sort of late 80s situation that was going on. Yeah, I don't think it was too frivolous, and some of it did pay off in the end because characters that you meet at the beginning turn up later, and so they all have their sort of not arcs, but their beginning and end points. But yeah, often when we have watched on this podcast movies from 20 years ago or more, they just are so slowly paced, and you feel like if they were made today, they would take 2/3 or less of the runtime.
Oh yeah.
Or they would fill a lot of that runtime up with something else.
Yeah.
And this could be done in an hour.
Oh yeah. You
could be like a TV episode, a Twilight Zone, 60 minutes.
You could move some of this stuff around, and you could develop the Frank and Nada relationship. Mm-hmm. We're going to call him Nada. Apparently the character in the short story that this is based on was named George Nada. He is never named in the movie. He's only named in the credits.
Yeah, hardly anybody has names in the credits or at all. Like we looked at the credits and it was man with shopping cart.
Yeah.
Pregnant lady.
Street preacher.
Annoying person. Like
there's a lot of that. Yeah, you've got basically Frank and Holly and Nada and like 2 or 3 other people who are named characters, and then it's a lot of filler. Yeah.
Well, and you said that he's Nada because in the story that this is based on, he's Nada. But to me, it reminds me of Captain Nemo in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and Nemo is somehow in Latin if it means no one, basically, which when you realize that is supposed to be this like first year Latin student of like, whoa, what does it all mean? And so Nada as a name feels like that too.
And also in 1988 it would have been a similar kind of effect of like Nada, that means nothing in Spanish.
In Spanish. You may not know.
What?
I'm very worldly.
I
speak
know
Spanish. I
didn't know Spanish existed.
Right.
Because it's 1988.
Right.
Anyway, there's a lot. This movie has a lot to say on the state of the world in the waning years of the Reagan legacy. Well, I mean, I suppose the legacy continues for 4 more years with H.W. Bush, but
let's not talk about it.
Yes, it is in the decline, and this is the point where I think people knew it. If not the political commentators of the day, the people on the ground,
the people
knew
on the bottom,
that Reagan's policies were
the people who were waiting for trickle down to trickle down.
Right,
were like, hey, wait a minute.
8 years later, they're like, they said it was going to rain.
It's a little dry
8 years ago, and it hasn't rained yet. So there's a focus on homelessness. There's a focus on joblessness, the state of the economy, jobs going overseas, the plants shutting down. Frank comes from
Detroit,
and he is sheet metal, and Nada comes from Arizona.
I don't think it ever said.
Somewhere.
I didn't get a whole lot of background on him. Because he's wearing a wedding ring.
Yeah,
but he doesn't mention his life or anything. So,
interesting story.
Okay.
Actually, I read this on IMDb.
Fill me in.
In my limited research that I did in preparation for this, he actually was newly married, Roddy Piper, and refused to take off his wedding ring.
Oh,
so
that's very
Nada
sweet.
was not intended to be married, but those observant among us would have seen a wedding ring.
Yes. Well, it does then when he's not quite lusting, but he's, getting moony over Holly. Like, wait a minute. But okay, that's very sweet on the actor's part.
Yeah. But there's a scene in an unemployment office where a lady is very cynical and dismissive of his plight as he's looking for work. Nada.
Denver is where he had come from.
Denver, that's right.
I don't know if was he a drifter or was that where who knows?
He's a drifter now. But there's a lot going on in terms of this. Like Keith David is working, Frank is working a construction job, yet still living in like a homeless sort of shelter camp. Yeah. Things are not going well in the California. Was this?
I think it was LA.
Yeah. In this California city. So yeah. I mean, it's got, and this was the thing. I mean, I mentioned this last week and I've mentioned this before. A lot of these movies that are just on paper, dumb action movies from the 80s actually had a little bit more to say about what was going on in the state of the world, especially in America.
Yeah. And it was, this generally is very much my jam of, it's the opiate of the masses. Wake up. Yeah. But I don't know. There was, and I get, 20 plus 30 years ago, maybe we're more sophisticated now, but something about just the way that, so these subliminal messages in these billboards and the periodicals and things like that are in these, it's like what generic canned goods used to look like, white background with black block letter text,
like impact,
and it would just be like, it just said mac and cheese. Like there was no effort to make it look like a real brand. It was they look like that, and it felt very 50s to me, and the whole thing kind of felt like a 50s version of what this would be. And I get a look on your, did it come from the 50s?
Well,
it was written, I mean, not did it come from?
Well, I don't know, but if you listen in a certain part of the movie, there is a guy who is the scientist guy. He's sort of like one of the ones who I guess has figured this out. And there's points where he's breaking into their television signal, which, by the way, they keep us all brainwashed and from seeing these subliminal messages and from seeing their true forms through the television. So, this is Avalon, but sci-fi. Television is the downfall of humanity.
Right.
And he says in one of his little speeches that since 1953, the climate has been changing in a way that is putting it more towards their climate than ours. So, as that is quite observant of you, it's very possible that those messages have been in place since the 50s, and that was the style. Maybe they saw that and they just adopted that, back then, because there is a little bit of lip service given to how long they've been here. Have they always been with us?
Yeah.
And then there are little clues like that. And I'm sure if someone's read the book or the short story, it's called 8 o'clock something is the name of the short story. I forget the name of it. It probably has maybe a little more detail or a little more world building, but those are the things that I've picked up on through multiple watches, that there is a reference to the 50s.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that it is intentionally that style, although also it just looks bleak because it's so minimalist.
Yeah.
And to just, some of the scenes are great. So, he gets these sunglasses and he puts them on and he's seeing the world for the first time, and he's looking at a newsstand, and it's just rows and rows of magazines that just say obey and consume and don't question authority and watch TV and all these things. Yeah, and it's very striking just looking down a row of newspapers and magazines and just seeing blank pages with black block text on them. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it felt kind of Cold War propaganda. Esque, which I suppose it is. Yeah, and there's a lot of references to there is no us and them. There's no other countries. It's all run by them. Yeah. Everything that they're doing to pit us against Russia or other countries against one another. It's all in service of keeping us asleep. There's a lot of asleep is a big thing that they put out. There's at one point, there's like I guess once you have the glasses and you can see some of these things, you can also hear them, because he sees a little spinny sci-fi doohickey on top of a traffic light, and he's saying sleep.
Yes. Okay. I wondered about that, because I was like, wait a minute, is that?
Yeah, and he can't see their little probe drones until he's got the glasses on, and then he can not only see them but hear them.
Well, now, as it happens, I wear glasses, as do you, and when I have my glasses off, I feel like I can't hear very well. It's like one sense is diminished and all the other ones are too. So maybe
this is true.
Maybe that's part of it.
This is true. So yeah, I mean, it is all. Ultimately, I think all of this, the economic and social commentary is a bit. It's a little bit, just out of college, like. I'm discovering these issues for the first time.
It felt kind of like reading an issue of Adbusters. Did you ever read that?
No.
Oh, it was, I don't know if it's still around. It was this magazine that I got it in like 99, 2000. So I was just out of college. And they would do things like do photo collages where they'd put a photo of a Big Mac in the hand of a clearly malnourished child, like with a distended belly, and it was like, oh, so deep. And after like the first couple months I got it, I was like, wow, this is eye-opening. And then after a while I was like, really? Wow, okay.
Yeah, I get it, you're edgy.
Yeah, so this felt like what? Like reading an issue of Adbusters.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
The message is not untrue, and it is not unimportant, but okay, you notice this. Now what?
Right.
So
right.
But I enjoyed this for the most part.
Yeah, I mean it is a straight ahead movie. There's not a lot of complexity to the plot, though there is a lot of stuff happening and there's a lot to take in. It's just, man who's down on his luck in a society that's as a part of the society that's down on its luck, finds out that it's all a conspiracy and sets out to change that.
Mm-hmm.
And just also the thing that's oppressing him isn't decades of social and economic policy. It is decades of economic and social policy orchestrated by an alien race who's trying to terraform our planet to be their own.
Which is, a rather interesting take on it, because, it's not my fault. It's the aliens. Like,
this movie in itself is propaganda to protect. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And there's some interesting stuff in the movie. Like there's of course, this concept of everybody's got a price. Everybody will sell out.
Yeah.
They stumble at one point onto a meeting of the human accomplices who are amongst the rich and powerful, and one of the aliens is standing in front of them going, it's been so great this year. Everyone in this room's personal wealth has grown by 39% this year.
Well, yeah, when he was saying that, you could see where this is going, and wealth has grown by. And you know how like when you're waiting for someone to talk, it's like it happens in milliseconds. You're like, and the next word's gonna be, and the next syllable's gonna be, and he was 39. I thought he was going to say 3,900, and then it was like 39%. You sold your soul for 39% increase. That's
well. I mean, I think as demonstrated by one of the homeless characters who is now wearing a tuxedo and very rich, you sold your soul for being part of the rich elite, and then that increased by 39%. Like that guy didn't go from living in a homeless village.
39% of nothing is still nothing.
He didn't go from living in a homeless village. Also, his ascension, very quick.
Yeah, that was like 2 days.
It's like 2 days. And this guy who is present at the alien raid. So the homeless shelter is also kind of, it's not a front, but it's attached to this operation that's making these sunglasses.
Yeah, it's a fake church.
Yeah, and I guess this is supposed to be like their outreach program. And yeah, one of the homeless guys that's there is, crotchety and grumpy and yada, yada. And then later on, when they happen onto this meeting of accomplices, he's there and he's like, oh, boys, finally, they recruited you. It's great. You should have dressed for the occasion, because they're in like their bloody clothes where they've just had a gunfight, but he doesn't notice. And so he then proceeds to show them around the whole facility, including giving them all the information that they need to stop the aliens, which he has somehow taken in the last 36 hours that he's been a part of this organization.
Time has no meaning.
Yes,
really.
yes.
The aliens have mastered time as well. They can do
Apparently.
that open up a hole and escape through it and just disappear.
Yes.
They also have mastered time. I don't know.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, it is this. I file this right alongside of RoboCop and some of the other movies of the 80s, which are escaping me, but I know exist. That had a little bit to say about the state of Reagan, the Reagan economy, including, one we've watched previously on the show, Raising Arizona, which is a bit of an indictment of the Reagan economy as well. So yeah, I mean, a lot of movies poking fun at Reagan and his
what's going to happen in
disastrous policies.
30, 20 years when they start making fun of we do not speak his name of 45.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that'll
something set in 2018, and they're like, "Let me tell you how things are going right now."
Yeah. Although this was contemporary, so I guess we should look to the movies that are coming out in the next year or two that address this.
True.
To see the version of it, but I don't. So there's a little bit to talk about this with this movie outside of just doing a plot breakdown, which is sometimes tedious.
So question. So. Yeah, at the beginning you said Roddy Piper, and he was sort of transitioning from a wrestling persona to an acting persona.
Oh, yeah.
What was his wrestling arc like? I have no idea. So give me the condensed version.
Okay, Roddy Piper is possibly the best bad guy in wrestling ever.
He doesn't look like a bad guy.
He's a bad guy.
He looks like Steve Irwin. I realized that. I was like, I've seen him as somebody's
Steve
dad
Irwin looks
on
like
the
him.
sitcom. Okay. Well, Steve Irwin's dead.
Looked like him.
Yeah.
A lot of if you're looking at wrestling from 10,000 feet, Ric Flair is going to stand out as a top bad guy. But
yes,
Piper throughout his entire career, he actually had epic rivalries with Flair as playing as essentially the bad guy. He was even when he was a good guy, he was a bad guy. He was like an anti-hero for his entire career. But he's most famous for his opposition in the 80s to Hulkamania and the Hulkster, culminating with, I think it was WrestleMania 1, where he took on Hulk Hogan and Mr. T in a tag team match. And I cannot remember who his tag team partner was in that match.
Wait, Hulk Hogan used to be a good guy?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's not, we're about to branch this into a wrestling podcast if you don't. So Hulk Hogan is...
I'm sorry I brought it up.
Hulk Hogan is the good guy of the 1980s and early 90s.
Okay.
Say your prayers, take your vitamins, the little Hulkamaniacs, largest arms in the world. Hulk Hogan he's in his entire career through the 80s was having a large, insurmountable obstacle put in front of him and toppling it.
Okay.
Roddy Piper, King Kong Bundy.
Okay. I'm very sorry that I asked.
Of course, Andre the Giant. So here's the thing. Wrestling is about long-term storytelling, right? So Hulk Hogan started out as a good guy in the early 80s. He turned heel or turned bad in the early mid 90s.
Okay.
There was over 10 years of buildup to his betrayal of the fans. He was literally, small children looked up to him so much. Like his heel turn was such a controversy in the wrestling industry. He literally came out in his red and yellow, his classic Hulk Hogan colors, with his Hulkamania t-shirt, to put a stop to a couple of bad guys who were doing bad things, and joined those bad guys. And the ring was immediately filled with garbage and just whole entire full sodas being thrown at. Like his turn was so effective. Like think of any movie or even television series where you've had a character that turned after a season or two. Mm-hmm. And now think, what if that person turned after 13 or 14 years of being the number one good guy in an entire industry?
Okay. My only question was Hulk Hogan at one point really a good guy?
And
I opened Pandora's box. I'm so sorry.
That's like if I asked, there was a time when women couldn't vote. Like, there's so much to unpack with that statement. Because your reaction would be like mine, like, oh my God, I've now got to recap.
How do you not know this? Okay.
Yeah. So, yes. So Piper, anti-hero, classic bad guy.
Okay.
Unhinged. Now, Piper had crossed the line several times. He did some racist stuff. He did blackface.
Color me surprised.
He did an infamous promo where he was half black and painted half in black body and not on the other half. Ooh. And he was going against a black wrestler named Bad News Brown. And he was not just in blackface, he was spouting racial stereotypes.
Ooh, ew.
And, but again, and I'm not excusing this, but he went to the line and then past it. Mm-hmm. And by his own admission, pushed too far past it a few times, but that was his MO, was to go to the very edge of the line and over. And a few times he definitely went
So how
too
did he
far.
turn into an actor? I mean, is he still now? Does he act now? Oh,
He's
okay.
Dead.
Okay. R.I.P.
So yeah, rip. Hot rod. So he basically just got interested in it. There were a lot of wrestlers who were getting interested in acting. Hulk Hogan famously appears as Thunder Lips in Rocky 3 or 2. I can't remember. So Hogan was sort of starting to get into it. You had Jesse Ventura getting into wrestling, it from wrestling.
I hear he does not have time to bleed, Jesse Ventura.
No.
There is no time on the schedule for that.
There is not. I mean,
no.
He's got important governing to do and conspiracy theories to sort out and an invisible alien predator.
There is no time for bleeding. Yeah. Anyway, continue.
You had Jesse Ventura who was getting into acting, and just that was sort of a thing. Lots of wrestlers, because wrestling is a whole lot like acting. You had a lot of wrestlers who were sort of making the jump over.
Yeah.
Well, and Hot Rod was amongst them.
It's similar, I guess, to pro sports. Your body gives out long before you're ready to stop earning money.
Well, and he was mid-career. Like, he had a decent wrestling career after this. In fact, he left the WWF over this movie. Now WWE, but back then it was the WWF. He left over this movie because McMahon, for whatever reason, didn't want him to do it. And McMahon is apparently like a huge control freak. I mean, he's his own class of crazy.
I 100% believe it.
And Vince McMahon, owner of the World Wrestling Federation.
Not Ed McMahon?
Not Ed McMahon.
No.
So McMahon actually, they split over this and he left. And McMahon, told him like, I can get you something else, something better. So it was something about this movie or John Carpenter or something that he just didn't want him to do. And he left and he did the movie, and it was a good success when it actually came out. And basically he came back to wrestling a year or two later, worth way more as a performer than he was when he left.
Interesting.
There was a lot of wrestlers doing the jump, and he is arguably one of the more successful ones. There are a lot of wrestlers now in modern days. I mean, WWE created their own film company. Mm-hmm. And have made like 24 movies. So, Mike Mazanik from the Real World can say, I've been in 6 motion pictures.
Yeah.
Like the Marine 4 through 16, sure. But, Roddy Piper legit, Hell Comes to Frogtown, this, and several other things.
I'm sorry, what?
He was in a movie called Hell Comes to Frogtown.
You're making that up.
No, I'm not.
You are completely making that up. That is not a real thing.
Google it.
Oh my God. Okay.
You can Google it right now.
I'm Googling it right now. Is it like similar to Magnolia?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
There were 2?
I don't know if he was in both of them. Hell Comes to Frogtown. It's a 1988 American science fiction film.
My Lord.
I told you it exists.
Looney Tunes?
Rory Calhoun is in that movie. Oh my God.
Who?
Oh, Jesus. I'm going to have to show you the entirety of The Simpsons.
I don't know any of these people.
So legit, Rory Calhoun is an old cowboy actor. And there is a Mr. Burns joke in an early episode of The Simpsons where there is a puppy or something and it's like trying to leap up and he goes, oh, look at him. He looks like a little Rory Calhoun. The point being, Rory Calhoun is an antiquated reference to make, but to Mr. Burns, Rory Calhoun is a popular actor of the day.
Okay.
But Rory Calhoun, was not. But yeah, in twilight of his career, Rory Calhoun did some interesting movies. Motel Hell, or I think that was the name of it. And yeah, apparently Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Okay. And the character's name is Sam Hell. Okay.
Yeah, he comes to Frogtown.
Okay.
Wow, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like a whole series.
Okay. I won't put you through Hell Comes to Frogtown because it is not one of my. It doesn't really make my list.
Good. I feel like I'm not acclimated enough for that.
But yeah.
Anyway,
Rowdy Roddy Piper.
Okay, so if you said that name to me like 4 hours ago, I would have thought he was taller and swarthy and had a beard. Who am I thinking of? Is that Diamond Dallas Page?
Probably.
Okay.
DDP is about 6'6" and has a beard. And was he swarthy? Might be hard to find current pictures.
No,
or anything but current pictures of
the pictures I'm finding.
DDP.
It looks like he's had a lot of plastic surgery.
He's done a lot of yoga.
It's hard to tell. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's not who I was thinking of. So
yeah, but
Steve Irwin's twin.
Yes, just yeah. Roddy Piper, by no means an angel. Definitely, like I said, crossed the line sometimes. I don't know whether or not he ever really truly apologized for any of that, but not a saint, not someone to place on a pedestal, but he's really good in this movie.
Entertaining, yes.
Yeah. So, apart from Hot Rod, let's see what else we got. Well, actually, while we're on the topic of Rowdy Roddy Piper, we can talk about my favorite line from this movie, and probably the most famous line from this movie.
Okay.
Which is, to paraphrase, "I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass." Dramatic pause. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Which I've heard umpteen iterations of, but you said this is the origin.
Yes.
Okay.
So
I gotta say, it would have been better if I had seen him chewing gum earlier.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing.
Okay.
Piper, as most wrestlers do, The Rock has talked about this, many wrestlers, he kept a little notebook of ideas for promos. Wrestling interviews are called promos. For promos. And amongst the lines and ideas that he had for promos, like he wasn't scripting them out, but he was, here's a good line I can say, or here's I'm giving myself this prompt, and then I'm going to stream of consciousness on this for 2 minutes on the mic. He showed John Carpenter his little notebook, and he's like, this maybe some of my character could say some of the things in here, maybe, and this was a line that he had in his notebook. And of course, had he said this in a promo, I envision it, and I believe he did actually use this in a wrestling promo after the movie, but I don't know what his original intention was, but I always imagine he walks into the scene and he takes some gum out of his mouth and sticks it on the mic.
Yeah.
And Mean Gene Okerlund is holding the mic.
Okay.
And he says, "Mean Gene."
Is that a callback to Highlander?
No.
No. Okay.
No. Mean Gene.
There was wrestling in that.
There was, yes. Mean Gene was not in that.
Okay.
That was Michael P.S. Hayes in that.
Okay.
No, so Mean Gene was the interviewer who held the mic for all of the...
I've heard that name in the last 2 months from you, so that's why I'm thinking.
Yeah, I don't know. But
anyway.
Hulk Hogan used to constantly say, "Let me tell you something, Mean Gene." And that was... Then you said something. You told Mean Gene something.
Can y'all tell, by the way, that how much wrestling talk there is in our house and how little of it comes from me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I grew up, wrestling was not a thing we did in my family, and then I meet this guy.
And of course, I grew up in the South, in North Carolina, in Greensboro. And if you know, it was a mecca for wrestling in the 1980s. And so I was right there on the ground floor. And I watched so many of these wrestlers. I don't think I ever actually got to see Piper live, although he was in that area for a time. I don't think I ever saw him live as a kid, but so many of these guys, Ric Flair and all of them. So it's a huge part of my life, even if I don't obsess over it all the time, when I get the opportunity to. So anyway,
you have phases.
Anyway, like I said, he comes up and he puts them, He sticks right on the mic. That's me sticking the gum on the mic. He sticks the gum on the mic and he says, Mean Gene, I came here.
Yeah, it does. It seems like it needs to be more than just a line. There needs to be a setup. But
and then he's all out of gum.
Yeah.
And so apparently, I guess a couple of the other lines maybe in the movie were also from his little notebook. So just like a cool little thing. But yeah, that was improvised by, or quote unquote improvised. It was, that line was brought into the movie by Piper.
Well, yeah. Well, we were talking in our last episode about when non-actors act, and it's sometimes painful. It was not painful with him. He whatever it is that the actors have, where they seem comfortable with the lines and the character and the world, like he had that.
Right, and I mean, no surprise because he's been inhabiting a character for 10 years prior to this as Hot Rod.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We got one big one left to talk about. Should we uncork the line item marked epic fight?
Oh God, that long. Well, epic as in long, because that
and epic.
I mean, yes, it was like there was the one guy was nearly scalped. Like that was
Keith David.
Yes, that was painful looking.
So during the course of the movie, there's actually two different instances that you pointed this out during the movie. No one wants to put his glasses on because, of course, before he hands you the glasses, he says, "Put these on because there's aliens and they want to control us, and put these glasses on." And in the one point, he has, perhaps some setup first. Okay. A little bit of plot.
Yes, we've talked very little about what actually happens in this movie, other than
so he gets the glasses. He gets the glasses, and he does what any sane person would do. Immediately starts making fun of the ground beef looking aliens that he sees, and draws the attention of the police. He manages to disarm a couple officers and gets a gun and a shotgun out of their car, and he's trying to hide from the police, and he ends up in a bank where he delivers the bubblegum line and then just starts randomly killing the aliens, just the aliens.
Yeah.
He's still got the glasses on. And while he's escaping from that and trying to let that cool down, he does the one of the top, I'm going to say 6 80s tropes for an 80s action movie. Kidnaps a random lady who becomes plot significant.
Yes, if you saw Commando, you saw what happened here.
Yes, it is much like that.
Yes,
he kidnaps her, throws her in the car, and this is, and we haven't given her enough credit. This is Meg Foster, if look her up if you haven't, but you would know her by her entrancing blue eyes. They're like you have blue eyes, but they're like gray blue. Yeah. She has blue eyes, and they are like.
It's just like a husky.
Sky. Yeah, like a husky. There you go. And I said this before. What was, I forgot my line. She was the Neil McDonough. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I was like, wait, who did I say? That she's basically the female Neil McDonough. She has just these entrancing eyes. And if you see her in a movie, she's going to be the bad guy. One way or another. She's going to betray somebody, or she's evil from the beginning. So we see her, and she's very calm to be kidnapped. Mm-hmm. Like, it just playing it cool. And I don't know if this is just like what they taught women in the 80s in a big city about being abducted, just like 100% cooperate with put no resistance up whatsoever. And then when you have the opportunity, smash him in the head and send him flying out of your
sliding glass door.
Down a massive hill.
It was conveniently placed. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, so he tries to get her to put the glasses on, and she's like, "Oh, I'll see whatever you want me to see. Like, there's no point in putting them on. Mm-hmm. If I put them on, I'm just gonna whatever you tell me to see. You just told me I should see aliens. I'm gonna say I see them." So she doesn't put them on, and he's 0 for 1 here on getting people to put on the glasses. She kicks him out the window and leaves his glasses behind. So he goes to the place where he stashed the rest of these glasses. He found a box of these glasses after the church that we spoke about previously was raided. He found a hidden box and he put it in an alleyway, and ends up going back for another pair. And round about that time, Frank, who he met at his construction job.
It's like a day laborer.
Yeah, like a day laborer type thing. Mysteriously just shows up in this alley to give him his pay. Mm-hmm. He's like, "Oh, here's your week pay and get away from me." Because at this point, Frank knows that he's wanted for murder.
Yeah.
And Frank, I guess, is just like hey, I don't know, you seem like a good guy to me. Maybe this is a setup. I don't know.
But I don't want it. I don't want no trouble. But
yeah, I got a wife and kids. Yes,
we
got a wife and kids.
Mentioned this several times.
Many times. He's got a wife and kids.
Spoiler: poor wife and kids.
Right. This guy's wife and kids. They don't have a dad anymore.
No.
So he tries to get Frank to put him on. He's like, put these glasses on, and he's like, "Fuck you, man." And
yeah, it is like trying to get a toddler to put. To eat a food that they don't want. Right. I mean, it is like full body arc trying to like get away from the glasses.
Like getting a toddler to put sunglasses on.
Well, yeah,
when they don't want to.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So they have this fight, and it is a knockdown, drag out fight.
It took about 3 hours.
It's 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
3 hours.
And apparently, this fight was supposed to be about 20 seconds long. But Piper and Keith David just thought this was an opportunity to go at it, and they rehearsed it for like 3 weeks apparently, and they really hit each other, and they really beat each other up. The only thing that I guess they pulled like face punches and groin punches, but everything else, like they took all those falls on concrete, and I don't know for sure, but that. Scuffing on the back of his head, the scraping is very possibly real. But yeah, they basically just beat the hell out of each other. For real, for like 5 minutes, like smashing car windows and jumping on each other and tackling. And of course, Piper's got to get a couple wrestling moves in. He gets a backdrop in and a gut wrench suplex. And
then how does he eventually he holds him down and just puts the glasses in front of his face? Right, to force them to.
Yeah, I mean, he ends up getting the better of him somehow. I forget the exact move, and puts him on him, and then shows him, and he's like, "Oh crap!
Oh my god!"
And so now he's got himself an ally. He's a sidekick, but he's not really a sidekick. Like I think they're more like a team.
Yeah.
But not as very clearly like the A in the team. Oh man, the A team. That just made me think about the A team. Oh man,
I've never seen the A team.
Oh god,
I might have seen the Bradley Cooper version movie, but I've never seen the show.
B.A. Baracus.
What?
B.A. Baracus.
I don't.
Face Man.
What? No.
All right. Yeah. Anyway, just more stuff to show you.
Yeah. I basically was born at the age of 22.
Sure. You were somehow born into the 60s, despite being born in the 70s.
And then completely,
raised
basically
in the 60s.
Pop culture from 75 to 85. I know nothing.
It wasn't on PBS.
Right. Yes.
For mainly stuff from England.
But my mind didn't rot.
True.
As I was told. Right.
Mine clearly has.
Well, and look where I ended up. Clearly, all that PBS paid off.
I'm pumping all this garbage back into you that you avoided. So he gets him to try on the glasses. There's the epic fight scene, and it's one of the things, you got the bubblegum line, and you got this fight scene that this movie's kind of known for. And just this huge knockdown, drag out fight. These guys just went out of their way, to make it.
Yeah. Well, and they kind of, they don't let that go, because for the next couple scenes, they're walking like they've gotten their asses kicked, and they've both got swollen faces.
Yeah.
Like lumpy jaws and stuff. And it's actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It doesn't just go away.
I was like, I feel sore after watching that fight.
Yeah. So. Totally. And this, the movie wraps up kind of like you expect. Like we said earlier, they happen onto, they get back up with they find the resistance cell, the people who made the glasses, and the resistance base gets raided, and they barely escape by accidentally activating this little watch that that they all carry, like a two-way communicator / emergency transport
It looks
device.
like just a fancy watch, which would make sense because all of the aliens and their accomplices are all rich.
Yeah, unless they're cops,
people.
They're rich.
Yeah.
And so they end up damaging one of these watches in an alley where they're like in a final standoff with the cops, and it opens this portal in the ground, like just literally a circle.
Yeah.
Like a perfectly cut circle in the ground.
Yeah.
And they jump down into a series of apparently secret passages under the city. And that's where they happen onto that meeting of accomplices.
Yeah. And at the resistance meeting, they learned that somewhere in the city, a signal is being sent out that basically continues or perpetuates the brainwashing,
the brainwash, the mind control.
And if they could stop that, then the humans would have a chance. And Holly is at that meeting and says, "Oh no, Cable 54, where I work, that's clean. There's nothing there."
Yeah, and she's there presumably because there is a very intentional scene where it shows that the glasses were left behind after he got kicked out of the window, and you're thinking, oh, she looked, she put them on, and she realized, and
we'll find out.
Yeah. So they find themselves through these secret tunnels in the news station because the very helpful homeless guy, who's now a rich man, gives them the tour, thinking that they're part of the crew now. And they have an epic run through this television station.
People are screaming. People are 20 feet away and they're screaming. And I was like, just hide, shut up,
just go. Drawing attention to yourself.
Yes.
And
it's a very tall building. It's like 30 floors.
Sure,
I mean, it's downtown LA, I guess.
And it's got the transmitter on top.
So they've got to get to the top.
Yeah, and here they go. They do the same thing about 12 times, which is they walk down a hall. Two guys pop out from a blind corner.
Yeah.
They shoot those two guys with and there's always this. I don't know if it's recycled, but it's pretty much the same shot every time. It's got to
be the same.
It is a shot of a very close up of the muzzle of the gun firing like 3 or 4 shots.
Yeah.
So it's just they go down a hall, two guys jump out in front of them, they shoot them, they turn around, two guys jump out behind them, they shoot them, they go around a corner, two guys jump out.
Yeah, and
rinse and repeat.
Yeah, this building has like more security than Fort Knox. So like, why did nobody notice this?
Well, right, and they're all wearing like this
gray camo,
gray white urban camo.
Yeah,
that stuff that was. I just remember for some reason being weirdly popular in the 80s.
Oh, you know what? They had that on in Red Dawn, didn't they? When they were out up in the mountains. Yeah. Well, you were talking about things being recycled. I bet the costumes were recycled from that.
Well, yeah, speaking of recycled, there actually are PKE meters, I think they're called, from Ghostbusters in this movie. The props from Ghostbusters are actually used in this movie as like alien communicators. So these guys hold up these PKE meters to their faces. I never
noticed things like that, but that's hilarious.
It's hilarious when you see it because that prop is just so easy to recognize. Mm-hmm. Like even if you tried to disguise it, if you've seen the first Ghostbusters movie, like you've seen this thing.
That's funny.
And so they're working their way up to the top. And oh wait, Holly's here.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah, and Nada is, we think, a little bit sweet on her. Like he's very concerned about her welfare.
Yes.
And so he's been looking for her, interrogating people. Where's Holly Thompson? Where's Holly Thompson? Well, we find her. So let's bring her with us so she's safe.
Yeah, come on, Holly. We got to get to the roof.
To stop the transmission.
So they get to the roof, and here goes Nada off to the satellite, and Holly grabs Frank and pulls him behind, and then just point blank shoots his brains out.
Yeah, she's
just poor Frank. He's
sorry, wife and kids in Detroit.
He is gone. Oh, they don't show it, but yeah, she pulls him back and just puts the gun right to his head. Yeah. And then cut to.
Well, it's funny there was a lot of brain splatter for other people, but the death of a main character,
a lot of squibs, a lot of blood shooting out. A lot of good stuff. So anyway, this movie ends like any good 80s sort of somewhat apocalyptic. Well, no, apocalyptic's not the word, but just these 80s sci-fi and horror movies all ended with the one last F you. Like, I'm going to go down, but so are you. Yeah. Or here's one last scare, or like there's always some kind of, it's not a happy ending is what I guess I'm trying to say. And this one ends the same way. Is Holly's got Nada cornered, and she's like, "Don't do it. They're going to win. You can't defeat him."
She's got a gun on him, and
she's saying this when literally blowing up the satellite would undo everything that they have, but she's got him right there by the thing that could defeat these guys. You can't possibly defeat them.
She likes her sweet 80s apartment.
Right. And that is one thing that they do, sort of the hint that they drop. Like, she is human, but she drives a Mercedes. Yeah. And she has a house in the hills, a nice house in the hills, and dresses very well, and et cetera, et cetera. So, they drop hints all the time that she's one of the allies.
She's like the French people who cooperated with the Nazis and got meat and wine and cheese of the deal. Like she's like, collaborators do okay. I don't know.
History tells us.
Yes.
And of course she has to turn because she's Meg Foster, and her steely blue eyes cause her to be evil.
Yes.
Apparently.
So, but Nada is like, nope, sorry, and shoots her.
He pulls his backup gun. Or something. He drops his gun and he's got a hidden gun. Because of course you always got a hidden gun.
You got several.
It's actually funny because he basically is like, he's running through the halls, yelling for Holly. And then in the final showdown with the bad guy, he pulls a secret gun and shoots the bad guy dead. Just like John McClane in Die Hard. McClane is running down the halls. Holly Gennaro, Holly. Has anybody seen Holly?
Yeah.
And he's running down looking for Holly. Michaels, McCormick, whatever her name is. Yeah. So anyway, that's just me putting things together.
Sure.
That's my pop culture addled brain, unable to think of things.
So he uses a hidden grenade that he has to blow up the satellite dish or whatever it is, and we assume that he's killed.
Yeah, he falls down, and there's a chopper maybe shooting at him, and because he's an 80s action dude, he gives him the bird,
flip everybody off,
on his way down, as he's dying.
Yeah. And then we see there's a long shot, and you see basically the transmission being destroyed, and it's whoops, not happening anymore. And then you get these scenes in bars and various other places, and the humans all of a sudden see the aliens for what they are, including one woman who is
in the bone zone.
Yes.
This movie, you go through this the entire runtime. Yeah,
there was no sex whatsoever.
92 minutes of this 94-minute runtime. No sex, no nudity.
None.
And in the last 90 seconds, they're like, what if boobies?
And they were right there, and she's just lying on top. Although I thought she's watching TV while...
Yeah.
So clearly this guy's not a good lay.
Right, because she sees the newscaster or whatever on the television revealed as an alien.
And
then she looks down
and he's like, honey, what is it? Because he doesn't know that she can't, And then the end. So
the end. Question mark. And I don't know if the original short story, is there more to it? Are there more stories? I don't even know, like maybe there was a plan for a sequel. I don't know. But so They Live. So what do you think? What do you think about They Live?
When you first told me about this, I was like, is that about zombies? And it's extremely not.
No.
Not really.
It's aliens technically, but
no, I mean, I think, if you talk about zombies as they're dead but not really, you could make a case that the humans in this are
mindless drones going on.
It's sort of Matrix-esque.
Yes. Now, that is a big thing. I don't know if there's ever been any acknowledgement of that, but the Matrix owes a lot to this concept, being asleep, being controlled and placated by.
Although the Matrix
others.
was much more explicit about their farming you, like because they were. It's been a long time, and if I recall, I was a little drunk when I watched that.
You had one beer. You've never seen the end of The Matrix.
Yes, I have. I don't remember.
I don't think you made it to the end.
You guys, this was early when we were dating.
Very early.
And I was bragging about how I could hold my liquor, and I don't think I held it at all.
No.
And I can't hold my liquor.
Yes.
Certainly not now. And then I was no great shakes at it.
Right. So what was the logic behind your ability to hold your liquor?
So I can't. Don't make me say it. It was. So I said I'm a journalist, which was debatable at the time.
You worked at a newspaper,
and I did.
You were in journalism.
Yes, that's better. And I was a sorority girl. And then I said, and I'm Irish, and I go, no man. And I hate that stereotype about Irish people as good drinkers.
You were just trying to impress your new boyfriend.
I was trying to make my boyfriend think I was cool.
And then
And then my stomach sent the contents back for lack of postage.
You made me realize that
I was not cool at all.
Yeah, it was that night as I held your hair back as you vomited into my toilet.
Anyway, I don't remember all of the Matrix, but they had them. They were like in little capsules of goo.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the life they thought they were living was completely a projection. So it's a little. Yes. The Matrix is more explicit about they're farming you, but
yeah, they were literally farming them for energy.
Yeah,
using them as batteries, as it's said in the movie. Yeah, and then they're actually, the movie itself is kind of. It's loose with it doesn't really come out and say this is why the aliens are here. There's some mention of them being just like businessmen, and they're just getting this planet. They're going to strip this planet of all its natural resources, and maybe we're cattle, or maybe we're meat, or maybe we're whatever. We don't really understand the plan of these aliens.
Well, it seemed very colonial to
other
me.
Than control.
So in the 1600s, did the British really have a plan for what to do in America? Not really. Just let's see.
True. Yeah. So there's a little bit of that, I'm sure. But I do think the Matrix, whether it knows it or not, it owes a lot to They Live, and probably the story They Live is based on and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, how would you classify this movie? You think this is more sci-fi, horror, action?
Not horror. I think of horror as gore and scary stuff, and this I would say it's a thriller at most, but really more sci-fi, dystopian sci-fi thriller.
Yeah, I agree.
Horror, though.
I agree. I think the reason I ask is because when I was a kid, we had a few, let's say 3 main video stores that we went to, and one of them had this in the sci-fi section, and one of them had it in the horror section.
I mean, if you think of John Carpenter as a horror director, then I can see how you do that. But
that's probably like more than anything. But John Carpenter was on a pretty good streak at this point. The Thing and Halloween before that, and one thing that John Carpenter's known for is he always does the music for his movies. And that's cool and all, but oftentimes you can tell that he either didn't have a lot of time or just really found a theme that he liked and made like 10 tracks based around it. And there's I wish I had it queued up, but I don't. There's a very specific like harmonica sting that's like, or something like that. And it's in the movie over and over and over.
It seemed like there was a lot of background music.
Yes. And whether it's appropriate or not, like there are scenes where it's really not appropriate. And there's just this like, sort of like Louisiana Southern rock.
It's music for drifters.
Yeah, drifter music just going on in the scene. Like, doesn't matter. I'm going to cut this sweet blues solo, and this guy's going to play the mouth harp over it. Yeah, like it's so funny, but he does that in all his movies. And John Carpenter, he's a director he's on more than he's off. He's definitely got a few movies. Vampires comes to mind, where he's a bit off base, but. You'll see some more John Carpenter movies for sure in the course of this podcast.
Okay, good to know.
But yeah, he's always a good one.
Okay.
You can depend pretty well on him to deliver, and he delivered in this, I think.
So, should people today watch this?
Of course,
okay.
Of course. I mean,
I'm just checking. I don't know.
I mean, it's a time capsule for one.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at a time when. Things were in some ways like they are now, but the 80s, I think, was categorized largely by the people who were suffering the most from the economic policies of the time being poor, obviously, but often white, more so than you might think of that in certain time periods. Like, not that white people are always privileged and always have money. But I feel like there was a period in the 80s where you had these traditional jobs that had propped up the white middle class, like textile mills and sheet metal, and these union jobs that were good. And those were the things that we were losing. And so you had this new class of impoverished people who were coming down into that because of the economic policies. And I think you see that sort of represented in the movie, because everybody on the construction job is white or black. So I guess I'm saying like not Hispanic, not, we're talking about white and black middle class who are falling down to the lower class, because Frank is clearly made out to be sort of a middle class falling down because he was sheet metal he's coming from. And I think that's interesting to see, like an interesting time capsule to see of like, this was the time where this particular economic calamity or whatever was a bit different than now. So you're looking at two different sides of the same coin. But it's interesting to see who was suffering then versus who's suffering now.
It is, I mean, in a broader sense, it is interesting to see movies that are not made as a period piece or necessarily like, this is a statement. It's just the economic situation of the characters is just sort of there.
Yeah.
But then you look at it years later and you're like, oh, wow, I did, like I'm thinking of completely different characters and economic strata, but Boiler Room, which I don't remember as being a very good movie, but it's these young guys, they're like, 21, 22, and they're making obscene amounts of money doing unethical things. Something in finance, I don't know. And there's this scene where the main character goes over to somebody's house that he knows from work, and it's this obnoxiously big house. I mean, you're talking like 5,000 square feet, and there's no furniture in there except for like a big ass TV and a video game system, and that's all the guy cares about. He has all this money to buy this house, but doesn't want a home. And the character is like, "How long have you lived here? Like a week?" And oh no, like 3 years. And he doesn't have the stuff. And that at the time, I think, because when was this? Like 99, 2000, 2001, like when the tech bubble was still big, and there were people out there who were making stupid amounts of money. And that was just something that made sense sort of in the zeitgeist. And if you watched it now and you didn't live through that, you would be like, well, how did they come up with that? That's weird. Well, because that was a thing.
Yeah. And
maybe I personally didn't know anybody like that, but that fits with my memories of that.
100%. And that's that's what I'm getting at. Like you're saying a version of that better than I was. I was stumbling around ham-fistedly, but saying I do think what you hit on something there. I don't think John Carpenter was like, I'm going to depict the plight of the poor white. Yeah. He was just depicting the time, and that was what he happened to depict, because apparently a bunch of the homeless people were actually homeless people.
Oh, wow.
That they were just actually like, hey, come out here and work. We'll give you food and a paycheck. Yeah. Give you a scale for the day or whatever. And, like they brought food out, and just like a lot of that homeless stuff was legit people. Yeah. So, he was literally just capturing a time capsule. And my observation is to layer that white and black middle class stuff over top of it. But like you were saying, it's a time capsule and can be interesting if it's done honestly. And I think this is pretty honest. And I think Boiler Room, as I recall, pretty honest depiction, and other movies, are that capture that. I mean, I think that they're not always done honestly. And I think this one was relatively honest with this depiction. I don't think it had a statement other than the basic trickle down economics bad, not working statement. It didn't go a lot more nuanced than that.
Yeah. So.
I mean, that's.
So, do we have anything else to? This was pretty short. I think this was like 90. Yeah, like 92 minutes. Yeah, so this is the trim one. Yeah, so this is it's pretty good.
Episode's going to stay pretty trim too. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything that I wanted to hit on. We could talk more about WrestleMania 1 if you want.
I'm good. Or I'm really truly good.
Roddy Piper.
No.
Tell you about.
No.
Starrcade 86.
No. Okay. I've had my wrestling for the week. I end up watching.
Wait, did you say for the week? So okay, I'm setting my watch because I can.
I end up watching wrestling with you on Wednesdays, not because I want to, but it's on, and I have in the room doing work. So that's my.
There you go.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So yeah, They Live.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it. Are you? Did you recommend this? Did I ask you that? Are you recommending this?
Yeah. I think it's worth watch. So.
Cool.
I was. Yeah. I mean, you said John Carpenter, and I was like, oh god, because I really don't like horror for the sake of horror. But this is not horror at all. It is.
No,
there's some tension, but it's not horror. So.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. And Carpenter did flirt with that throughout his career. With this sort of like, I'm on the edge of, is this horror? Is this sci-fi? Is it a little bit horror? Like, I think most of his movies have a little something. Like you could call the creature effects on the aliens. A little bit. It's not horror. Yeah, it's just makeup effects.
Yeah. So if that's They Live, then folks, we would love to know what you think about it. Are you enjoying our ability to see social commentary in every single movie? I think we have a pretty unbroken streak.
Right.
Finding something in every movie.
All art should have something to say, right?
Right, whether it means to or not. So, but we would love to hear what you have to say about wrestling, about They Live, about Meg Foster and her husky evil eyes, whatever you want to say. So drop us a line. We are on both Gmail and Twitter. The handle for both is YSMY Podcast. YSMY for You Show Me Yours. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, you can find our back episodes on any of your major podcast providers, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So you can go there to find our episodes on Avalon, which we name checked. What else did
Raised in Arizona?
Yeah, I mentioned Highlander, which we actually haven't released yet. Sorry.
I mean, if you're listening to this, we've released
That's
it.
right. Yes, we have. I'm sorry.
Chronologically,
time is a flat circle.
Before you release other things,
right?
At the time of this recording, we haven't released Highlander, but by the time this is released, we will have released Highlander.
Anyway, you can check out Highlander.
Yes.
You can check out a lot of things, and we would love it if you would rate, review, or subscribe to us. That makes us feel happy and loved. Mm-hmm. We are Gen X kids. We need to feel loved.
Do we?
Yes, we do.
Whatever.
We do. I'm apathetic. No, I need to feel loved. How about that?
Sure.
So, and then we have new episodes every other Wednesday. So tune in 2 weeks. Next week I'll be hosting, and I don't actually know what I'm going to show Dave. I have my schedule written down, but I don't have it with me. So, I don't know.
Come prepared.
I know.
We're supposed to come prepared.
I'm sorry. I didn't do the homework.
Let it be a mystery.
I do. I don't know. I can't even remember what I was considering. I can't even give you a hint. So tune in 2 weeks to find out. I've really sold it now. So anyway, this has been You Show Me Yours, Frank. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io.
Did I say Frank's?